Welcome everyone and thank you for joining us for our adoption Q&A session. I am Kim King and I'm here with Heather Featherston and we are here to share about the adoption process and answer the questions that are on your minds. This webinar is brought to you by Lifetime Adoption. Lifetime Adoption works nationwide with placing parents and adoptive parents and primarily assists in newborn adoptions, although Lifetime Adoption can also assist with adoptions where a baby is already born or a child is a little bit older. If you are brand new to Lifetime, just starting to get to know the adoption process and Lifetime, tonight's webinar is a great way to get to know us a little bit better, get to know a couple of the people on the team here, and a great next step is to fill out your free application. It is a free application. Sometimes I forget how much we take that for granted because a family was on the phone with me recently and told me that there was a several $100 application fee just to apply. And that's not even letting you know if they can help you. But anyway, Lifetime's application is and always has been free. It is at lifetimeadoption.com. If you are watching the webinar on your screen, you can click the or use the QR code there. If you'd like information about the adoption process or anything specific that we don't get a chance to answer in this quick 30-minute Q&A, please email me directly, Kim, K-I-M, at lifetimeadoption.com. You can also call to speak with a coordinator at our regular office number, 727-493-0933. Now, we have a lot of different families and people listening to our call tonight, so I just want to let you know if you are a contracted Lifetime family and you are here for this webinar tonight, of course, you are a hopeful adoptive family and you are welcome to stay. But just remember, you also have your other two exclusive hour-long, twice a month adoptive family support webinars. So sometimes people get their wires a little crossed when they get these webinar invites. And just remember that you have your exclusive webinar invites, those other ones twice a month. Also, if you are affiliated with any type of organization or ministry that works directly with women who may be encountering an adoption decision or contemplation, and maybe you're not sure how to have that conversation about modern adoption, please reach out to us so we can help and schedule training and give you the materials you need to answer that call on your heart when it comes to those moments when you're discerning, I should say something or I should let her know that adoption is an option, but perhaps you just don't feel equipped. We can give you all the tools and education. Just reach out to Diana here at Lifetime Adoption and she can get you all set up. So Heather, thank you so much. Was there anything I missed?
No, I don't think so. I think that's great. But one thing while you were talking about, people who may encounter or may work with in their professional career, women, experiencing an unplanned pregnancy, y even if you don't work in that arena, you're not a social worker or a counselor, but you work in a facility that you think might benefit from training, please know we train all types of different organizations, hospitals, clinics, doctors' offices. So, if that's know that those are always options too. We're happy to help in any way. So let's jump into the questions we got today, Kim, for the webinar. And the first one is something I know you love to talk about. We'd like to hear more about the steps in the adoption process.
Heather, do you want me to give the soup to nuts summary?
I think that's a great place to start. And please know if you are joining us tonight, we do these 30-minute calls really quick fire and we go through things quickly. And you are always more than welcome, as Kim said, to call or email anytime.
And you can always, if you're attending live, type in your questions or comments, responses in the questions box if you're attending live. So, but yes, the adoption process. First, you have to have some sort of an idea of what you're looking for in your adoption. Whether you know that you want to adopt a baby or an older child, that will definitely help. Here at Lifetime, we have our free application, which will ask you a few basic questions about what you're looking for in your adoption, and it will ask you to share some of your basic family characteristics and a little bit about your backstory, what brings you to adoption. The application should only take you about 15 minutes to complete. It is fully confidential confidential and it does not obligate you to anything. So that is a great first or next step in your process is filling out the application, no matter where things are for you and no matter what's bringing you to this topic of adoption. You are welcome to fill that out, and then we'll schedule a phone or video call if we can explore further and get more into the details and help you establish more of what you're looking for in your adoption and let you know if we'd be the right partner for you and to walk with you in those next
Mhm.
steps. The next step being you need to have a home study. Lifetime will provide you with a home study provider referral when you begin your program with us. So rest assured, you don't have to find a home study provider on your own, and you don't have to have it started or finished just to apply or just to start with us. We will guide you through that. And the home study will take about a couple months. Meanwhile, you'll work with us on creating your profile. That's what we're going to be showing birth moms. The profile is more like information about you, kind of like your story, what brought you to adoption, what your values are, your faith, personality, interest, what you're looking forward to in life as you become parents through adoption. So we'll help you create your profile. Again, rest assured, you're not on your own. You'll then wait to be chosen by a birth mom, and we'll provide you with lots of adoptive family support through our twice a month webinars and our monthly check ins, as well as open door policy for anything that might pop up in between. And then once you're matched, we'll refer you to the right legal services to retain for your adoption. And that could be an attorney, two attorneys, an agency in the birth mom state to do the legal work instead of an attorney. Any of those could be possible. And that's why we just ask that you refrain from retaining legal services until we have the match in place, because you're always going to need legal services in the birth mom state, always
Mhm.
across the board. Whether or not you need them also from your own state just remains to be seen, depending on what her state is going to allow you to complete through her state, even though you don't live there.
Mhm.
And then, classically in our adoptions, our traditional, typical adoption story is that you travel to the hospital when the baby is on the way or just born. You go to the hospital, you meet birth mom in person. Most likely, you've gotten to know each other a little bit in advance, or maybe just that day. And you get to meet your baby for the first time. And then, typically, the baby will discharge directly into your care from the hospital. And if you're out of state, which most of our adoptions are since we are nationwide, then you'll just remain in that state and go ahead and start, having some of those first and those early days of your baby's life while you await clearance from your attorney to let you know if you can take the baby across state lines or when. And that usually takes about 7 to 10 business days. The reason that you don't bring baby across state lines immediately is because both states have to review all the activities that have led to this adoption, including your home study, to verify that none of their state laws that pertain to this adoption have been broken. And so if they've got it all reviewed and everything looks good, that's when your attorney will let you know that you can bring baby across state lines for the purposes of adoption. The
Mhm.
birth mom will have a specific amount of time before the adoption becomes irrevocable. Ethically, morally, and legally, there is no state that allows her to terminate her parental rights before the birth.
Mhm.
And we really like that because, as our founder, Marty Caldwell, who is also a Christian adoptive mom herself, who went through several pregnancy losses and years of infertility, as she has always said, the birth mom needs to have the chance to say hello before she can say goodbye. So,
Right.
that is a very important part of our process that we honor here at Lifetime. And every state has a different amount of time, maybe 24 hours, 72 hours, 10 days, 30 days. Usually within that range, the adoption will become irrevocable. And
Mhm.
then once you're home with your baby, you'll need to schedule in most states a post placement visit or two with your social worker who did your home study. This is a formality for most families because in our adoptions, usually there aren't any challenges with the child bonding or language barriers or anything like that because this is usually a newborn baby and you're usually the only mom and dad that this child has ever known and you're transitioning through as many new parents do. But the social worker still needs to come back and check on a child that is being adopted now that placement has occurred. Placement means now legally you have the baby with you. So you'll have those post placement visits. It's more like a reunion, kind of a full circle moment with your social worker who did your home study. And then you'll await your court date to finalize your adoption. And that's when you'll be able to legally change the name of your baby to the name you've given and your last name and get the process started to request the birth certificate with your names as parents.
Mhm. Wonderful, Kim. That was amazing. That was definitely was the soup to nuts version.
Uh huh.
So,
That's right.
you know, and I'm sure there are questions that came up as Kim went through that, and
Mhm.
we're happy to answer any of those, and also know and understand that some of those questions, it's kind of hard to answer until you are matched. Once you're matched, we have more information about the states involved, the state laws involved. And Kim talked a little bit about the time a birth mother has to revoke. Sometimes that hearing about that, kind of strikes fear in the hearts of adoptive parents, wondering about those what ifs. But just so you know, one of the things we really focus on here at Lifetime is the opportunity to build that relationship between birth mom and the adoptive parents. And we'll be talking a little more about that as well. So, Kim, let's go to our next question here. We know adoption can be expensive. Can you break down the costs and resources? And before you get started in that, I just want to share a resource we have for lifetime families. It's called Your Adoption Finance Coach, and it is where families who are interested in getting more help and guidance, they can select to work with one-on-one with an adoption finance coach who can help them with not just budgeting and planning, but also identifying grants they may be eligible for, and really tracking of that information. We also provide a great deal of information on the adoption tax credit, which I believe is now around $17,000, which that is dollar for dollar money families get back after adopting up to a certain phase out level. So that really is a help. So Kim, I'll go ahead and let you talk more about the costs.
Yes, the best way to get your hands on the specific cost to plan for is to email me, kim@lifetimeadoption.com. I have a wonderful info packet for adoptive parents. Within that info packet, there is a whole breakdown of every expense you should plan for, all the milestones that I described here a few minutes ago. It's all written out for you, as well as a complete list of our services and options you have to choose from here at Lifetime and Lifetime's fee. It has a full explanation of Lifetime's built in payment protection plan for families, as well as a sample budget created for you that follows the model of a typical adoption that we see every month, year after year. So just email me, kim@lifetimeadoption.com. Even if you're listening to this in the replay, just send me an email. Let me know your first and last name, what state you're in, since sometimes there are specific expenses that different families in different states need to plan for. And I'll send that over to you. And you're always welcome to share a little bit more about what brings you here to adoption and where things are in your process. I do want to comment again. We know we're going super fast in this. When we talk to you on the phone, we're going to take our time. So if you're like, whoa, whoa, slow down, just give us a call, okay? You can always call and speak with an available coordinator and get the information, more at your pace and get that chance to ask follow-up questions too that might be on your mind or that might be more specific to you and your experience.
Mhm. Absolutely. Next, we had a couple families ask about specific challenges. One was for adopting a toddler, another is adopting as a single. And, you know, I- I- we do have families who, well, let me back up a minute. When families start with Lifetime, or really when you start adopting anywhere, one of the things you really need to put some time into is identifying what you are open to in regards to a child. That includes things like race, age, um, if they have had any prenatal substance exposure, um, those types of questions that will come up. For families who specifically want a toddler, I just want to share that can be limiting here at Lifetime because primarily, I would say probably around 90% of our adoptions are newborn adoptions. We do have about 10% that are children already born, and that includes children up to about the age of 5. It's not so much that there's a unique challenge with specifically wanting a toddler, other than there are not as many available. And most parents who are open to, say, a newborn also may be up to a child who is 1, 2, even 3 years old. So it's kind of seen as a limiting factor when it comes to your preferences. It just means you cannot be you don't have as many opportunities to be chosen. You know, certainly adopting as a single parent, I wouldn't say it's necessarily a challenge. I do think it has some unique opportunities maybe to showcase a little differently. So, usually if you have a couple adopting, you see a mom and a dad, someone can assume a traditional mother-father relationship. For single parents, we really encourage them to, show that you are not, one person on an island. Show your support system, talk about your support system, because that can be very, very important. Most women who are placing their children for adoption are, in fact, single moms. Sometimes the father is actively involved in the placement, but you really want to be sure, for singles, that you are reflecting that it's not just you. You do have a support system. This child will have a rich, um, uh, you know, group of family or friends or whatever you have there to surround them, teach them, be available for them. It's just, it gives you a different opportunity. So both of these situations, it's not necessarily that they are good or bad, better or worse. They're just different. And I will say that's one of the beautiful things about a birth mother choosing the parents, is because sometimes a birth mother is would prefer a single mom if she perhaps has never had a positive relationship with her own dad or any men in her life. Sometimes birth mothers are looking for a family who specifically wants a toddler, who isn't, doesn't seem to have their heart set on a baby. So it just is, gives a lot of other opportunities, really, for you to, kind of set yourself apart and show what makes you different and unique.
Mhm.
So, Kim, can you provide more clarification on what open adoption means?
Absolutely, but I think you're the best person. Well, okay, actually, a lot of people ask this question. I think
Hmm.
it'd be a really good video for us to do for our social media too, because so many people wonder what that means.
Hmm. Hmm.
People often fear that it means that you're leaving the adoption legally open, that the
Right.
birth mom either can come back legally or will try to just because you have a connection, that it'll
Mhm,
mean that she'll try to undo the adoption even if it's not legally allowed.
mhm.
Um, so people wonder about that. And really, Heather, what it means is you have a connection, you have communication, and maybe you can elaborate a little more on
Yeah,
that.
yeah. Traditionally, open adoption means that there is information shared that can be as little as the birth mother knowing your names and choosing you. It can be as much as a free flow of information. What we see in our open adoption, which that at Lifetime, we don't have a program for closed adoption. Certainly, if a mother chooses not to have contact, that's her choice. But we don't really have families who are open to closed adoption, because simply it's not in the best interest of anyone, especially the child. Open adoption means that the birth parents and adoptive parents have had the opportunity to meet and build some type of relationship. It may be not much of a relationship, or it may be that they've really grown into a friendship that certainly the child is the reason, but it has turned into, you know, uh, people who have things in common, who want to share, who are interested in each other. And again, the child is maybe the reason at the beginning, but it does become a true relationship where you care about each other. um, the Many people think that open adoption really is referring more to the contact afterwards, and what we see in the contact afterwards, it can be as little as updates through the mail, through email. It can be getting together for visits once or twice a year. And those visits, it's not like visitation in a divorce. It is the two families getting together. And the family on the birth mother side, it may just be the birth mother. It may be both birth parents. It may be the birth mother and her mom, or the birth mother and maybe she has another child. So it's getting together maybe for a meal and some time at a park. It's not visitation. That your child doesn't go and stay with the birth family for a weekend. So that's kind of on the other end, and then most adoptions fall somewhere in between. They may have a visit that maybe they intended on every year, but it kind of gets to every other year as the child gets older, and maybe they text or they stay in contact through social media or they email. It really is dependent on the relationship that they've built and the agreement that they've made before, because we are big believers that the best open adoption is one where expectations have been not only shared but agreed upon. So we have those conversations so that when a family, has the opportunity to get to know a birth mother better, they know what she is expecting when it comes to that future contact. And again, the relationship often dictates what actually happens. But if a mom, for instance, we're working with a mom right now who is placing a 3-month-old little girl, and she has another child and she just can't take care of this one as well. And she has said she would like to get together once a year for a visit and maybe get updates a couple times a year. And right now they're matched with a family who's going to be traveling and meeting them here in the next few days. So it really is, it's something that is worked out ahead of time. But I do want to say, the current research, the current studies have shown that a child, when they grow up in the truth of knowing who they are, where they came from, and not just in stories, but actually knowing, okay, that's my birth mother, that it leads to a more confident and a healthier um, self-esteem, self-awareness. They know who they are. There isn't a fairy tale being written in their head about where they came from or who their birth mother might be.
Right, because they know their story and they can see themselves, their identity as an adoptee and their adoption story and their tummy mommy's story
Mhm,
in a very positive way when they actually know her.
mhm,
And just to add on, I know we have families from all across the country here on the call.
mhm.
And in our program, families are from all across the US and adopt from all across the US. So sometimes people wonder, hey, do we have to travel back to the birth state once or twice a year for these just get togethers? And we always let them know that we do let birth moms know in advance that she would be responsible for her own travel. Certainly, you could move. We work with military families, birth mom could move. So just rest assured that the travel for every visit every year is not on your shoulders.
Mhm.
But certainly, we've had wonderful families who have been very generous. And maybe if they're in her neck of the woods or they want to help pay for her travel, they totally can. But just know that's not a commitment we're asking you to make. If you're
Right,
saying, yes, we'd be happy to have open adoption and we value that.
right, absolutely. And a similar question, Kim, we get, do we, as the adoptive parents, have to come to your physical office?
So we actually don't have any requirements for you to physically meet in our office in person. In fact, our application process is all online. You can fill out your application at lifetimeadoption.com. And usually we just go into a flow of having really good communication, which families value so much. They appreciate
Mhm.
it so much, the communication here at Lifetime, phone calls, texting, emails, and then you can schedule your phone or video call. So it's all virtual. And we've been working that way for many, many years. In fact, when the 2020 happened, it was like we were made for it because we were already working virtually and primarily internet based. And
Mhm.
that is how most women are researching these days. and starting to look at profiles is it's all virtual. So yeah,
Hmm.
you don't have to physically come to our office. Now you do have to physically meet with your social worker for your home study in your own state. We leave that to your social worker, and again, we provide referrals, so rest assured you will get the contact info to great home study providers in your state when you become a lifetime family, and then you'll schedule those times for her to visit. And the reason is that the home study is state specific. Every state has their own adoption laws, and we just ask that you meet your local state requirements. So, no, you don't have to physically ever come to our office. In fact, all the adoptive family support, you'd be able to access it online too.
Hmm. So one of the questions we sometimes get is kind of, I'm going to say, fear based, and that is, what do we do, or what would you recommend we do if we haven't been chosen by a birth mother? And I know that that can be a concern as you come into this process. And part of Lifetime's program, and and something that we do regularly in our twice monthly adoption support webinars is talk about things like this. Talk about what you can do, because that's a big part of our program. We do encourage families to regularly update their presentation materials, their profile, their photos, their video. We encourage that. We give them other things they can do to help get more eyes on them, to help do networking in other ways, really to help them in a way that, I mean, it's not that, for instance, we talk about changing photos. It's not that the photos are the wrong photos, but sometimes we just find that changing things is a fresh approach. And also, we understand that, sometimes that waiting can be difficult. So it also helps families to know that there is something in the program they can control. And the reason I want to talk about this is just to let families know that you're not alone. You have a designated coordinator. You have twice a month where you're talking to other people on our team about that. In fact, we just had one of our adoption support calls on Wednesday, yesterday, and one of our coordinators who work specifically with expectant parents came on and answered a lot of questions, and that was amazing. So, families who are in Lifetime's program, they are not on their own. They have our entire team. We even have staff who works just on the materials that are shown to birth mothers. They advise on the photos, they advise on the words, on the videos, things like that. So there are always things when you're in Lifetime's program, and that's a great opportunity to, reach out to your coordinator and say, hey, you know what, we're feeling like we'd like to make some changes. We'd like to know what else we can do. And she definitely will point you in the right direction.
Yes, so making sure that you're following all the steps I would say is the very first thing. And then
Mhm.
revisit preferences. See if there's anything
Oh,
you can
that's a good one.
expand.
Hmm.
If there was something that, like, maybe you met with me or Jen or Becky on your original initial application, phone or video conference, and
Hmm.
we asked you, hey, are you open to what would be a good one? Like, are you open to a birth mom who has used marijuana throughout the pregnancy as long as the baby is healthy, no special needs, no birth defects, healthy baby at the hospital? And you were iffy and hesitant. And we said, you know what? It's better to put a no on it for now, and then you
Hmm.
can expand later. And maybe you were just like, okay, great. And now the dust has settled. And maybe now is a good time to go back and research that. And I will say, almost all of our families are a yes to that. And that's a very common substance
Hmm.
that is used in pregnancy in adoptions worldwide. So that's not like a rare thing for a birth mom to be using marijuana throughout pregnancy. And we rarely see special needs. That doesn't mean there aren't risks, right? But the
Hmm.
reality is, in our adoptions, we rarely see special needs. And when we have, it's usually not anything to do with a substance. It could be
Right.
something completely separate. So that would be a good thing is research, pray about, talk about some of your preferences,
Hmm.
and rest assured we are here to fulfill the agreement that we have made with you and honor the preferences you originally had. But if you're asking what else you can do, that would be a good thing.
Mhm.
And, as a lifetime family, you are in a better position than ever before to have a personal connection come to you through your network because now you're a little more high profile. You've maybe shared that you are waiting to get chosen. You've maybe
Mhm.
had conversations about the fact that you're going through a home study. It's come up at on Sunday,
Right.
um, at church or at the recent get-togethers or small group Bible study, people kind of know what you're doing. And so you're more likely now as a family in our program than you ever would have been on your own to have a personal connection,
Mhm.
uh, yield a possible match. So that's always a good thing to just keep in mind. But going back to the very first thing that Heather was kind of talking about is one of the most important things is just to realize there's nothing wrong with you if you've been following all the steps, and
Mhm.
adoption simply takes time.
And Kim, I know we're getting ready to wrap up, but I want to share something here that I try to share as often as I can, and I probably don't do it enough, and that is what birth parents are looking for, especially when they are considering an open adoption, and that is they are looking for a connection. And that connection can be anything from, you look familiar or similar. You have similar interests. There's something about you that just feels like there's a connection there. I liken it to, many times when you've made a fast friend, you meet someone and you just hit it off. That is kind of what birth parents are often looking for. And so Lifetime's program really, when we're helping families on their presentation materials, their video, those things, we're trying to help you draw out opportunities to make that connection with birth moms because there's all of you on the call. Any adoptive family, it's easy to say we're going to love your child as our own. Absolutely. We're going to provide everything we can. You bet. But, a birth mother has to choose. And so that is what she's looking for. Is she's looking for a connection. She's looking for kind of what she feels is going to be a safe place to land. And it doesn't mean that you have to look like Barbie and Ken with a big house. In fact, she may feel intimidated by that. So, again, just a little bonus tip. That's what birth moms are looking for is they're looking for that connection with you.
And thank you everyone for listening to our Q&A tonight and for your participation. You can view other Q&A webinars at youtube.com. Just look for Lifetime Adoption and we have a whole playlist of past webinar Q&A sessions. You can also get quick videos and tips and stay in the loop with what's happening here at Lifetime on our social media. Instagram is a really popular one and you can just look up on any social media platform Lifetime Adoption. Be sure to fill out your application if you haven't done so at lifetimeadoption.com. You can email me for information or give our office a call. And we thank you so much for choosing to invest this time in yourself and your future in adoption with us here at Lifetime.